Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third-world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be relent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Today, I am speaking to Dr. Paul Scheele, PhD. He is a pioneer in accelerated learning and the creator of the PhotoReading Whole Mind System, a transformational approach that helps professionals and creatives process information faster, learn deeper, and perform at peak levels. His work has helped people unlock hidden brain potential, boost productivity, and achieve extraordinary results across any and all industries. Dr. Paul, how are you?
Gerald, it's wonderful to be with you. I am absolutely fabulous today, and really thank you for inviting me onto your Productivity Smarts podcast. This is great.
Okay, so now full disclosure, because we're going to have a great conversation today. Dr. Paul, I've been working with you for a number of years. And honestly, I started working with you as I was working through my vestibular imbalance with vertigo. And the things that you have taught me have radically changed and transformed my life, my career, and just in so many different areas. It is such an honor and pleasure to have you on the call because you have really been just a mentor and a coach and someone who's really transformed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined what the things I've learned from you have done for me.
Well, that's very kind. And I hold you up as a stellar example of someone who not only learns the principles, but fully embodies and applies them, and the results speak for themselves. So, congratulations on all your good work as a learner.
Excellent, excellent. First off, I have two questions for you, and that is, what is your favorite style of music? Knowing that you're a guitar player.
All right. Yeah, I learned guitar when I was fifth grade, and
Okay.
that was back in the 60s. So I'm a rock and roller to start out. But what really inspired me, Gerald, was listening to LPs where there was a jam band. So,
Yes.
for example, the Allman Brothers really showed me what it meant to improvise, to really
Okay.
take something out. And as a lead guitarist, improvisation became my mainstay. So you call out the chord, I'll improvise. And one other, I really liked a song by the Grateful Dead, they were also quite a jam band. And the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia wrote a song called "The Wheel" in which he played pedal steel guitar. So in college, I bought a pedal steel guitar and learned to play, and I just love the sound. It's taken me across a lot of genres.
Awesome. That's awesome. Now, do you have a favorite band or a favorite song?
Probably not, because I'm too easily wowed by any really good musician. I mean, I listen to a lot of Pat Metheny, It has a very jazz guitar, very
Yeah.
different sound, but, yeah, so I really couldn't point to one thing and say that's it.
That's amazing because I'm the same way as a bassist. People come up and ask me, "Oh, you're a bass player. Who's your favorite bass player?" I'm like, "I don't have one." I mean, all of them are because they're so amazing and there's so much music out there, and I'm constantly looking and learning and growing. And so I figured I'd get that answer from you.
Well, I'd have to say that as far as bass players go, Stanley Clarke was an early favorite of mine, and I've been
Yes.
to many of his concerts and absolutely adore his playing.
Yes, he is phenomenal. I had a chance to also meet Victor Wooten and Marcus Miller personally, and let me tell you, these guys just play at a whole nother level, and
Yep.
we could actually turn this podcast into a whole musical conversation around that, but we're here to talk about photo reading.
Oh,
Now,
good.
probably a lot of people that are listening are going, "What is he talking about when he says photo reading, and how's that transformed his life?" So I'm gonna ask you, can you explain photo reading because you developed photo reading. And
Yes.
what was the premise behind the development of photo reading? And what's the essential elements for photo reading?
Absolutely, happy to get into it. I was a student of accelerative learning, which was something back in the early '80s was showing up in the US based on principles developed behind the Iron Curtain by a Bulgarian psychologist named Georgy Lazanov. And the person who was teaching me accelerated learning was actually on a contract with IDS American Express here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And he called me up while I was in a master's degree in learning and human development. He said, "Hey, Paul, the financial group here is very interested in a speed reading approach based on accelerated learning. Would you like to develop that for them?" Curriculum design was my forte at the time.
Okay.
So I used my master's degree as an opportunity to develop an accelerated learning approach to speed reading. Now, if you think about speed reading, the big one for many, many years, in essence, Evelyn Woods was saying, take your regular reading and make it go faster.
Right.
But what accelerated learning suggests is no, we need to engage a bigger part of the brain that actually does most of the learning, not our conscious mind, but what was called the paraconscious or the inner mind or the other than conscious mind. So
Right.
I did a lot of research on this and studied the world's fastest readers. It turns out that with Evelyn Woods, one person out of 100 would reach speeds of 25,000 words a minute. And so I wanted to know what that one out of 100 did. What were they doing differently? And I was skilled in neurolinguistic programming, meaning I could model expertise. So I created the photo reading whole mind system for IDS American Express. We gave it to them. I'll just give you one example of what this does. They could take a 60-page technical report in information systems and data processing. They could photo read it in less than a minute and a half, and they could activate it within a few minutes and be able to discuss it in a group with better decision making, better insight than if they had read it one word at a time. The total amount of time that they would take with it, between 9 and 11 minutes. And Gerald, it was stunning the effect that it had. So we brought it out to the general public. The state of Minnesota insisted we have a license as a private school. And since then, it's been published in 19 languages, taught in 43 countries. It's still going strong after having developed it back in 1985. It's a stunning change in the way the human mind perceives and processes written information.
You know what drove me to look up photo reading when I first started learning about you? Because I first saw you on a video with Jack Canfield. That's kind of how I learned about Steve Harrison as well. Because I knew Jack Canfield, but I was like, who's that guy with Jack Canfield? And Jack Canfield was talking about what he learned from him. I'm thinking, I got to check him out. And that was you. And so I had taken a program with a good friend of mine who I did interview named Antonio Rodriguez. He wrote the book, the Project Management Handbook for Harvard Business School, for Harvard Business Review, and he's written a number of other books by Harvard and so on. And we became colleagues because we're in the project management space. Well, he and another gentleman over in Singapore developed a course around strategy implementation. And when I tried to go through the course, they had their videos, but then they had a ton of PDFs and reading material, and they gave you like 3 months to get through the course. I could not get through the course because they had
Yes.
so much reading materials, and I was using the way I was taught to read, word for word, front to back, and you gotta understand it, and it was just like, "Okay, this is something's wrong here, this
Mhm.
is not working." And so I went and I checked you out, and I went to Learning Strategies and your site, and I bought the photo reading program, and I was still kinda scratching my head, and then I said, "You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and make the investment and take the weekend course." And I did. And it radically changed my life because my wife is an educator. So when I told her what I was doing, she was like, yeah, right."
Yeah, we've gotten that reply from a lot of folks over these last 45 years.
Exactly. But then when I told her about a book I had just photo read and did a little bit of activation on, and then I gave her the book, and then I started explaining the book to her, she was like, "Huh, I need to take a look at this." And so she actually took a course with me when we did it together, and she uses those principles even now. But one of the other things that was happening is because of the vestibular and issues that I was going through with the vertigo, I was really limited in how much energy I had and things that I could do, and I needed to way to use more than just my conscious mind to learn. And when I learned about photo reading and all of the accelerated learning programs that you teach and have developed, it transformed my life because now I don't have to effort through all this material. I can
Well, I want
simply
to Yeah, and I want to really make sure your listener understands the difference between what the
Yes,
conscious mind processing
yes,
and what the inner mind or non-conscious mind processing. So this is all based, Gerald, on a concept called non-conscious acquisition of information. So
right,
the photo reading course is premised on two things. One, we have a vast non-conscious mind. Most people would think it about as the subconscious, but it's a database. Now that database outweighs the database of the conscious mind by 10 billion to 1. So if you imagine your conscious mind's database being a circle of about 12 inches, that circle sits in another circle 11 miles across. That's the difference in the database. Then we also have something called a preconscious processor, meaning information that comes to our sensory systems, it's actually processed before it reaches you at a conscious level. So, for example, the human eye and brain takes in 10 million bits of information a second, but the conscious mind, a half a second later, only receives 40 bits of that. So, guess what? We're using this 40 bit per second processor to move our eyes one word at a time
yeah,
from the beginning of the book to the end, all going into this very limited conscious processing database. And guess what? We go through a page and we don't even know what we just read, or we get to the end of the book and we wondered, why did I read that? I didn't get anything out of it. So the concept of photo reading turns that absolutely upside down and backwards because what happens is we're putting the information in at a page a second.
yes,
That gets processed below the threshold of your conscious awareness. Now you go back and you activate it, meaning you bring it from that inner mind using your printed materials and you pull out a fraction of the material you need at a conscious level that gives you all that you need to be successful with the material. Think of it this way: on a given page of text, there's only 4 to 11% of the words on that page that carry the meaning of that page.
right,
But you look at it with your conscious mind, you say, Yeah, but which 4 to 11%? I don't know which one. But once your inner mind processes it, it says, "Oh, well, get this. Here, this paragraph, not on this page, not now go back here. Oh, right there. There it is." And so what we get is in the time we have available, we get the comprehension we need, and it could be in a tenth of the time that it would normally take for you to read it word for word.
Exactly, because, most of the time when I have a podcast like this and I'm working with an author, they will give me their book and I'll take the book, and sometimes it's 200 pages, sometimes it's 300, 400 pages. But using your process, I will photo read the book the morning of the podcast.
Nice.
And so I will sit there for, like, literally 5 to 10 minutes and flip through the pages going through the photo reading process. I'll wait for an hour, and then I'll come back and I'll activate it with developing 7 questions. I'll skitter around and find the information I need, and when I start having the conversation with the author, all of this information that I read, besides the 7 questions that I have for them, starts coming up. And then sometimes with the
Yes.
book, and that's really, really amazing that happens because it's like you're in the room and you're shining a light on in this larger area, and the information that you're talking about starts illuminating everything that you took in that you weren't consciously aware of, but non-consciously you are aware of it.
Beautifully said, and there's a lot of neuroscience to validate that's how it works, and the way that we can think of that is when that 4 to 11% gets processed consciously, it's attached to the other 89 to 96%. So when you start talking about it with the author, all of a sudden the rest of it starts flooding in. Now, it's a little bit shocking for people who just get started with photo reading. They're thinking, how could I know this much? I don't even know how I know it. And that's because it's non-conscious acquisition of information. So to bring it into the conscious mind, all of a sudden you're speaking knowledgeable with the expert who wrote the book, and they're thinking, "How long have you been studying in my field?" And you say, "About 5 minutes."
I read the book this morning.
Yeah, their jaw just drops, but that's exactly how it works. Now imagine applying this. You get all this material at work, and you have to be able to make decisions on it and lead teams with it and guide strategy with it. And it's stunning how many organizations people are required to read it and they never do. And they come in unaware, don't really have a sense. And how can you lead any task if you're not properly informed? But you
Exactly,
can be properly informed in a matter of minutes, which is so
exactly.
exciting.
Exactly. Now, I want to ask you to walk me through the 5 major steps of the photo reading process and how that boosts a person's performance. But before that, I just want to share this one thing that I remember sharing with you earlier. Both of us are wearing spectacles. We wear the glasses, right? And so
Mhm.
every year I have to go to an optometrist and have my eye exam. And so as I was learning and digging deeper into the photo reading process, because I take, I'm a part of the program every year, just kind of just really learning and just taking it deeper and deeper and deeper. I thought to ask my optometrist, I said, listen, I do this thing called photo reading. And I explained it to her. And I said, so help me understand how the cones and the rods in my eyes work because I'm able to flip through a page at a theta wave state in a meditative state and digest the input of the book, and then I can activate it and all this information comes up. I do that when I do my podcast. She said, "Your cones are responsible for seeing what your conscious mind is sees." So that's the 4%, right? And the cones do that. But the rods are directly connected to your non-conscious mind. We have in our eyes many more rods than we have cones. And so although we can't process all the information consciously that we're flipping through, the rods in our eyes are able to digest and dump that information into our non-conscious database. And I was able to get that confirmed by my optometrist, who I go and see every year.
That's great. Yeah, and I spoke to the North Central States Optometric Association. The idea is it's fascinating, but the if you think about what we do when we read, we get hard focus, and that hard focus is called the fovea of the eye. It's a very densely packed area of cones in the eye, and we have to fuse the left and right eye into this little window that's about the size of one word and maybe a half of a word on either side of it.
Right,
And that's what we skate across the page to be able to read consciously. Now, with the non conscious, we get a divergent gaze, meaning we're taking in two pages in one single glance and we're flipping the page every 2 seconds. So, in essence, we're moving through materials at a page per second. And it's as if you think about it this way, here's an analogy. You go to a art museum where they have this giant landscape on the walls that
right,
20 feet across. You don't run up to it and look at one leaf on one tree
right,
and then try to figure it out. What you do is you pull it all in all at once. And that's essentially what we're doing with photo reading. We're taking the entire printed landscape, giving it to the inner mind, and then saying, hey, in all of this, where would I go to get my purpose for reading this? Where am I supposed to go? So you know what chapter to go, what page to turn to, and it's remarkable how quickly we can get to what we need in the time that we have. But that's because our inner mind, our non-conscious mind, is doing most of the heavy lifting, and this is what research in cognitive psychology has proven. But we didn't learn to read like that at school. We learned to sound it out and say it right and get tested immediately. What did you just read? And what we're doing is we're going through a big book in layers. So the 5 steps of the system
right,
is, first of all, you prepare yourself. So you have the book in front of you and you think of your purpose and how much time you want to spend. And then you get into an ideal state of relaxed awareness. Then you preview the book. And the second step of preview just takes a minute or so. And what you're doing is you're understanding what the book is about in general, the gist of it, and then you confirm what your purpose is for going into it more. So you're saying, should I do this book or is there going to be a better one? And you'll get a feel for it right away.
you save you
Now,
a lot of money when you go to the bookstore too.
oh, boy, does it. Yeah, I have a lot of stories about that. But then the third step, which is the most provocative, is the photo reading step, where
Right,
you relax, as you said, into a theta state. Very easy, takes only about 90 seconds. You then place on the top back part of your head a fixed point of attention. We call it the tangerine technique, but in essence, what we're doing is we're getting the brain to be able to process what's directly in front of it. And this is based on fascinating research by dyslexics who recognize that most people have a roving point of attention, not a fixed point. And it requires, in order to read, a very high amount of mental focus. And so we allow ourselves this really gentle, easy way of orienting toward the book. It's called photo focus. Then we flip through the pages, maintaining a steady state, and you go through the book left to right. You can flip it over, go right to left. You could do it left hand, right hand, doesn't matter. But your gaze is essentially through the center crease. So you're looking at both pages simultaneously in kind of a soft focus.
right,
Now, when you're done and you do your closing of that, now what we do is we post view. So we take a few minutes to survey how the book was structured, get some of the key terms that the author was presenting, and then formulate questions. Like you said, ask 7 questions. And if you do 3 or 5 or 7, that's fine. Now you want to get away from it because at this point, your inner mind is now incubating. And what that means is it's building neural connections to the material that you're interested in being able to have. And Professional writers can tell you that they do this. They gather the information and they sleep on it. Well, we all we really need to do is get away from it and have a drink of water, move a little bit, and then we can come back and activate. And there are a number of steps in the activation from skimming, as you described it. There is a technique called soup reading and dipping. There's a technique called skittering. There's a technique called rapid reading, and we can mind map what we came up with. In essence, you're going to retain a better memory of the book because you focused on what was most important. And if you ever get a question asked about something you didn't necessarily focus on, spontaneously the rest of it comes into mind. We call it spontaneous
Youth
activation.
activation. Yes.
So those are the 5 steps. It's prepare, preview, photo read, post view, and activate. And you can learn it in a home study course or in a weekend course. We've got it in the book, so you could read the book and do it
Yep.
yourself, but it's not complicated. Anyone can do it. We've had kids as young as 8 and 9 years old. We've had adults as old as 91 taking the course. I remember the medical doctor in Buenos Aires said the reason he's taking is he doesn't know how much longer he has to live, and there's so much more he wants to learn. He was a retired medical doctor. So, the idea is the brain is built to do this, but nobody ever taught us how to use it. What I've done, Gerald, is I've created a protocol, a very simple set of steps that allows the non-conscious mind and the pre-conscious processor to do the heavy lifting for you. And
Yeah.
it's been proven all these years. It's in Asia, it's unbelievable. It just took over Japan. It was astounding. China was never published a book that fast in the history of China. It just took off like gangbusters. So it's a fascinating thing. Every Supreme Court justice and their secretaries in every one of the 32 states in Mexico were required by the federal justice system to take the photo reading course because there's so much caseload and they only have so much time. They
Right.
have to be able to get through it. So it just
Right.
makes sense. There was a book written in Japan, Gerald, called 10 Times More Productive, and it focused on the
Photo
photo
reading.
reading program.
Wow. Wow. Well, I know, one of the things I was thinking about was how because of AI, many professionals are overwhelmed with information because, the AI agents can just crank out information. There's more information now being created every day than it was ever created in the world in one single day on a regular basis. So to stay up on all of this reading, all this knowledge, if you try to use the old tools of word for word reading, it's overwhelming, you feel paralyzed, you have no idea how you're gonna get through it, but with photo reading, it makes it where you actually are able to work along with the AI because now you have a way to digest all that information and go after with like you said, within the time that you have to get the information that you need so you can make good decisions from that.
Yeah,
What Yeah,
if you're watching the AI fill your screen with the answer to your question, most photo readers will actually read it as fast as it's populating on the screen.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that for myself, and I'll share this example. Last year, I took 4 Ivy League classes at the same time, at one time. And it was a lot of information. I could not have done it if I had not learned photo reading and speed listening, right? And so I also want to talk about that because sometimes what I'll do is I'll photo read a book, and if it's short enough, I will crank it up as an audio book at 2, 2.5, or 3 times the speed and just listen to it around the house because I've already taken it in non-consciously. Now I just wanna activate it and bring it up a little bit more, and I may be done with a 300-page book within less than an hour as I'm doing errands or I'm doing some things around the house, and I still am able to retain a lot of that information. How is that possible?
Well, what's so interesting about this is early on in the development of photo reading, I was teaching the course, and one woman could activate like I've never seen anybody ever. I said, "What, are you a speed reader or what's" "No, no, no, I've never taken anything like that." I said, "Well, what's in your background gives you this ability to literally read and comprehend 100% as quickly as you can turn a page, look at it, turn, look at it, turn." And she said, "Well, I was the teaching assistant on research and speed listening that was run in the '70s by a doctor at the University of Minnesota, a Manny Steele. And what he found is you could take an hour-long lecture, put it at rates so fast that it sounds like complete gibberish, and test out at 100% comprehension with it. And he proved it, but what happened is it went nowhere. The research was buried because professors thought it made them sound ridiculous. Now, if you think about that, a student could finish a course in 1/10 of the time. So that means that we're really cheating our brains, we're cheating our students. And I developed on all of my home study courses something called the fast finish. So after you listen to it, you can listen to it again at hyper speed. And what that does, it develops that channel of very rapid processing in the auditory channel as well as the visual channel. So it has neurological effects that you've been able to capitalize on.
Yes, it really I remember, one of the first times I did an Ivy League program, I was at Harvard, and I, had like 15 case studies to read, and I photo read them all. I did a little mind map for them before I got to the class. The morning of, I found an app that I could upload the PDF files to, and I would walk around campus. And for the 3 or 4 case studies that we were going to talk about that day, I would go get a cup of coffee and just walk around the Harvard campus and listen to them at 2.5 times the speed. I enjoyed my morning walk. I enjoyed my cup of coffee, and I came in and I was like totally up to speed on everything we were talking about and was able to add a lot of really good, valuable input to the class, but I wasn't struggling where I saw some people who had printed out the entire booklet of all the PDF files, and they were going back to their room and staying up late night reading word for word what the books and what the case study said, where I use the photo reading process. And I was like, man, I might want to go get my PhD because this is so much fun.
It
I was
is,
like,
it's fun. It's a
it really,
blast. I mean, when I did my PhD, it was a hop, skip, and a jump through the one thing that actually crashes most PhD students, which is the literature review. It was a blast for me, and 70% of all doctoral students remain all but dissertation because they can't get through the reading. But the joy, I really want to underscore this, the idea of making learning a joy. That's what our brains can give us if we follow the right protocol that can make it happen.
yeah. Now let me bring something up the other that I also learned from you, and it's called syntopic reading.
Yeah, so syntopic reading was inspired by Mortimer Adler and James Van Doren, who wrote a book in the '60s called How to Read a Book. And it's the idea that you could take in a single afternoon 4 or 5 books on a given topic, different authors. You could photo read them and activate them all in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Now, this is something quite stunning, and it brings you up to a level of expertise which distinguishes you among your peers. I mean, obviously, when you're at that Harvard class, everybody was looking at you thinking, "Yeah, how long have you been in this field studying what we're talking about? You're like the top of the class." Well, we see this happening over and over again. The good thing is to be able to say, "Hey, I need to get up to speed on a particular topic. What do I need to know?" And this is where AI can help because it can locate the books for you. and then you photo read and activate those books. And now, look, here's the difference between a novice in a field and an expert in the field. The novice doesn't have any exposure. So if I give both of those groups a brand new book on that subject, the novice isn't going to know where to start. The expert sees all the patterns already and says, "Oh, I get this. Oh, I know who they're quoting. Oh, I know it's in chapter 3405 that this new information is going to come through." So they get through the book in no time. Well, the difference that makes the difference is exposure to the field, and there's no faster way to get exposure for your brain than the photo reading process.
Exactly.
So you want to know this book, photo read 20 others in the field. You'll know this book like nobody in the planet.
Exactly. And so, what's really interesting is using not only photo reading, but using the Syntopic reading, it has allowed me to create new practice areas in my company by photo reading areas around sustainability or AI or Python coding or just all different types of things that I want to get into. And by doing a syntopic reading of 3 or 4 or 5 books at one time, doing a mind map of that information and doing that around the classes I'm taking or a new practice, it's allowed me to actually build a new practice and begin landing contracts with major corporations providing that service. And when I went and presented and talked with them, they felt like I had been doing this for years when I had only been doing it for months because of the syntopic reading process.
See, and this is the exciting thing about the human brain when you can access more of its latent potential instead of using dysfunctional, outmoded, inefficient ways that were taught to us in grade school. It's ridiculous to think that we could get through this stack of material with those skills. So this is really leveraging an important power of the mind, and if you wanna keep up, fabulous. If you wanna get ahead, incredible. If you wanna innovate, if you wanna be a creative in a field, if you want to bring forward new ways that are going to make a difference in the future of this field, photo reading is really the way to make it happen.
Exactly. I have 2 more questions for you because I know we're running out of time here, and I could literally talk to you all day about this topic because it has made such a difference in my life. If somebody's listening and they go, "Wow, okay, that sounds too good to be true," and I would say this, if you're following the Productivity Smarts podcast, go check out my profile on LinkedIn, and you'll see the educational things that I've done, and I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that that was because of the photo reading and what I've learned from the person I'm talking to, Dr. Paul Scheele here, and how it's really allowed me to play at a whole different level of life, getting a chief AI officer program from University of Chicago, the Wharton School, Johns Hopkins and Kellogg, and so on. But if somebody's going through this and they're listening and going like, "Yeah, but, that's not me. I'm not able to do that. My brain's not gonna be able to retain that information." How would you answer that for them?
Well, it's important to know you don't have to trust me, you don't have to trust my company, you don't have to trust photo reading. It's about trusting that your brain can do this, and the fact that you've never done it up until now does not disqualify you from being able to do it in the future with a proven system that can teach it to you. So it's okay. I want people to be skeptical. I just want them to be open-minded skeptics, meaning they're going to test it. And the only place that you can test it is in your own life with the kind of materials that you have to be able to get through. And that's where photo reading shines. It proves itself over and over and over again that you have way more capacity,
Yes.
way more capability in the brain than anyone ever taught you in traditional education.
Now, last question here. What's one mistake you see professionals make when it comes to this learning and self-development, and how can photo reading help correct that?
Well, I think you've already stated it. A person comes up to the threshold of what's next and they think, uh oh. And so they move into fear.
Yeah.
Now, what cognitive stress and what fear will do is it will down-regulate the brain. In other words, it will cause you to go into a freeze response or a fight or flight response or total confusion. That's what overwhelm, overloading your cognitive circuitry will do. But I've developed the process so that we kind of slough all that off and we go into a state of relaxed awareness where your brain can show up. It's called up-regulating the brain. And so we're moving into brain centers, which all of us possess,
Right.
but none of us are really activating it because we're trying to deal with pressuring and powering our way with willpower and stress to try to get where we want to go. And exactly the opposite is what's required. So, the big mistake that I see most people doing is they default to their fear rather than saying, wait, there's got to be a way to do this. And that was my fundamental question in 1981 when I started learning strategies. I knew there was a better way to learn. And what I wanted to do was give people a way to access their true potential using learning methodologies that would give them that access really rapidly. And that's what we've done now. It's still going fine, after
It's
all these
amazing.
years.
Yeah, even on this podcast and talking to you, I've learned so much just even about the justices and different courts having to you have photo reading as a requirement. Japan and China taking off and really grabbing hold of your concept of photo reading, which is amazing. So if someone wants to learn more about photo reading or they want to experience it, how can they learn more about you? Where can they go to get the book, to get the course? Where can they go?
Yeah, there is a URL that anyone could use. It's photo reading. It's one word, photoreading.com. But I would really love them if they could come through Productivity Smarts. Go to www.learningstrategies.com/Gerald, your name, so that we could track and see that these are the people that came through you. So it's learningstrategies.com/Gerald, and just type in photo reading. You'll get all of the information about it. The book, the home study course, the live seminars. There are trainers all over the world that teach it. So yeah, get involved with it. And one of the things that you ought to know also, it's all satisfaction guarantee. That was something that I established in the very first course I ever ran, because I don't want any of the financial issues to say, "Well, I'm throwing away my money." No, you use this for 30 days, you're gonna demonstrate that this pay will continue to pay you big dividends for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Dr. Paul, again, I could literally sit here and talk to you all day.
It's
Um,
been fun.
but again, I would have to say, if there's one skill that I have learned in my life, or I'll put this in my later life, that has radically transformed every part of my life, it is photo reading and the accelerating learning techniques that I've learned from you. And so
Oh,
I
that's
am
so
so
great.
honored to have you on the Productivity Smarts podcast. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm super excited. And thank you so much for bringing your whole self and just putting it all out there and explaining it in ways that I could never have done on my own. But again, what an amazing program you've put together, that you've created. And I just want other people to experience it, because when they do, they're going to see their lives change, and doors that they thought had closed are now going to open for them in ways that they've never considered possible. So, Dr. Paul, thank you for being on the Productivity Smarts podcast.
It's been my great honor. So much appreciate this. Thank you.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.